Welcome. And today I'm thinking about solutions. Are we awake yet? I think we are. I think a percentage of us are aware of the story we've been fed and the falsities behind it. And very simply, the reason for such a thing would be for control. What better reason? Some understand what's going on. They keep it from the others, and they hold control. And they are justified for their lies in their eyes. And really, it comes down to the awareness of what's going on in this realm. It appears as if there is a cataclysm that sweeps through this whole plan and wipes out civilizations. And in some cases, there do appear to be wipeouts done by the hand of man. And in some cases, they appear to be natural, almost plasma related, and in some cases, water related, and what seems to be a back and forth cycle. And so, again, controllers would simply be those who know. And if we could only understand the symbolism left on structures all throughout history, we would understand the story. And we are now beginning to piece it together. I mean, the first thing is to realize that there is another story than what you've been told. And we're now waking up to our world, a new world, all around us, a world that we were led to believe we built. And we find this world being covered up as post offices and universities and various government institutions, state capitals, churches, cathedrals, libraries, museums, and various memorials. And so ridiculous are these repurposing and redesignations of buildings that eventually they're torn down because they apparently no longer fit the needs, and the repairs are often too expensive, and we replace them with very simple, inexpensive designs, slowly erasing the history in front of our eyes. And what we have is a lot of ruins left, such as the glass beaches found all over the world. And they tell us that these beaches were simply dump sites, and all the glass is the remains of fires, burning of the trash, tumbling of the waves. And yet we find these glass beaches all throughout the world, in places very remote, Arctic regions, in which there shouldn't be, and haven't historically, according to our narrative, been any cities. And yet we see these same patterns. And in the northern regions, almost what appeared to be emerald-like glass, and perhaps the remnants of emerald-like cities. And so what can we do about all of this? Eventually it's going to be obvious to more and more until we reach a critical mass. And then what? Once again, I never condone any kind of violence. That would just be stupid. We should have solutions. And what would the ideal situation look like with an awakened people living in the false paradigm that they've been given in a controlled situation, giving most of their energy, which in this realm equates to money, to basic needs, basic things that third world countries often don't even pay for. The richest nations are oftentimes the most enslaved and really just fooling themselves. And so once again, an awakened people would come together and at the very least, create a new way of living and build structures that would protect against these resets that seem to be an absolute, and the exact times are probably never really calculated correctly, but the event seems to be a certainty. And yet what we can see is we have always continued, and we will continue. And some by accident, and some by preparation. And I think we're lucky to have platforms in which we can communicate across the world, and we have the right knowledge, and we even understand the function of many of these buildings of the past when relating to antiquitech devices and free energy. And lately we're understanding with the work of Martin, why a pyramid, and a perfect building, considering a reset from plasma or water, would have a slightly tapered pyramid shape, and it would also go under the ground and be watertight, and yet allowing good air. And recently we are understanding a lot of these possibly employed technologies in ancient structures. And perhaps many don't care, but I know that many do. And so I ask you today for solutions in the comments below. And is it worth trying? Now, many do this on an individual level, and I encourage everybody to prepare for any situation, reset or not. It might be a heavy winter or an extra hot summer. Even modern building codes tell us to prepare for the 100-year flood, and most building codes are designed with this 100-year event in mind. And yet many people don't live to be 100, even though we have the potential to live much longer. So they don't care. And it seems like some distant number. So in short, my simple solution might be a GoFundMe type page in which we raise money to build a city of the future with all this knowledge that we have now, with all this new truth, this being a foundation for future generations to come. And this is what I imagine in a perfect scenario, if this was a story, and yet it is. We are the makers of the story. We are participants and should not just sit idle and place blame on others. And yes, without further delay, as promised, here's a little free energy clip. This was shared with us by a channel called Subphotonic, and we do hope he's doing well. And this just shows a flock of birds. Now, I think we've all seen these birds doing this type of pattern, sometimes in the fall, sometimes in the spring. And in this case, they seem to be migrating around the perhaps energy field that is not seen by the naked eye, but that they are clearly attracted to, and just swirling around in this pattern. But really beautiful. I'm not sure if that is the sun's reflection up there, or if that's actual free energy, as we'll see in this next clip, which I believe to be actual free energy being depicted in this particular piece of footage. Now, this footage came out of the Royal Palace Park in Cambodia, and very, very beautiful. And I think what's even more impressive about this is the sound that you'll hear emitting, and just really fascinating and very electrical seeming indeed. And for this little piece of footage, I wanted to give thanks to Lee at the amazing Flat Earth British sub-channel, and just a mind blower. Thanks, Lee. And this next piece of footage is actually from Burlington, Vermont. And let's have a little listen at this beauty, a modern creation. Very impressive, and I believe this one is sitting right in front of the courthouse downtown. And in conclusion, since my video was a little short, a little walkabout video, since I'm out of internet for another week, I wanted to show a few pictures. And this was really interesting. This is something that was shared with me in a comment. The Philly Please Touch Museum. So instead of a Please Don't Touch. And really just a perfect example of a ridiculous museum. Just a beauty. And apparently this is still there today. And this is a really fascinating picture. I mean, we see these trolley cars and what appeared to be umbrellas. So it was probably a rainy day, and really just an amazing turnout in front of an amazing building. And just the size of these statues and entryways, just unbelievable. Some stained glass here. And so yeah, I don't care what you put in this museum, unless it's things from this time period, but this is much more impressive. And real quick, I wanted to touch on this view of the new custom house in St. John, New Brunswick. And I featured this in a video recently. Just really an impressive structure, and as usual, you all informed me of much more after the video was done in the comments. And apparently this is a serious mud flutter, even though I'd suspected it. A view from the front here shows that the level or elevation, we see a little man in fact right here, is much higher. And let me show you that in another picture here. And here we go. So again, are we going to be building buildings into hillsides like this? Or is this building much older than this road? And in the pictures that I was showing, there wasn't even a road or a sidewalk here. It was just complete devastation and mud. And some suspicious characters up here on the roof. And these amazing devices, once again, that we even get a clear depiction of in the architectural renderings. Very amazing. And again, to consider that people were on a budget. You know, we're told of the hardships and this and that, and then we're also told that people would just throw up buildings like this. I mean, two conflicting stories. Either times were rough and you would just build the essentials, or they weren't. You know, whatever the function of this new custom house would be, it would be perfectly adequate at 1 or 2 stories. And even when we look at government facilities like this, again, it would be just fine without this top portion. I wouldn't be surprised to find that this portion probably doubles the price of the building. And now I appreciate the beauty immensely. But I don't think governmental people would. Not now, and not then. Really making absolutely no sense when you begin to question things. And then I just wanted to show this little image that I featured in my Salt Lake video, where I actually went out and explored the town. And I'm coming back to this Joseph Smith Memorial Building and this symbol right here in between these two heads. And really interesting symbology when considering the reset. And as Martin shows in many of his videos, you know, a lot of these flowery and watery kind of depictions that we see here, perhaps depicting a reset in the flowing, and perhaps these could be represented as the angels or the magnetic fields that change directions, triggering these cataclysms. And here I was really questioning what this symbol was right here. Very mysterious and wheel-like at a first glance, until we look at something like this. And now we can see in this clock 12 segments, of course, and really resembling this to the T. And now we can count. We can count segments, starting here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So really this representing time, and perhaps the time of the reset, if again we could decode these symbols. And I think it's all here. That is the reasoning for someone leaving all of this symbology in the buildings and architecture and statues and monuments. So that's it for today. I do hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Do have a blessed day. Please like, comment, and subscribe.